People often say, speak up, express yourself, be honest with your feelings. They tell us that silence is weakness, that hiding emotions is deceit, that true respect comes only when we reveal everything. But few realize that those words are a trap, and the ones who fall into it never notice until it is too late. Because when we speak, we hand others the key to our inner world. Every word is a door slightly opened. And once someone walks through it, we lose the right to choose. Those who talk too much will eventually drain their own strength, like a candle that burns bright but fades fast. In every room, in every conversation, there are always two kinds of power, the one that lies in words and the one that lies in silence. Words can draw attention, but silence makes others bow. When we speak, we become bound by meaning, by reaction, by the expectations of others. When we are silent, others must interpret, must guess, must feel uneasy. And in that uncertainty, power is born. Like a thin curtain, no one knows what lies behind it, only that they cannot look away. Think of a coin. When we toss it into the air the first time, the sound of it hitting the floor feels clear and heavy. But if we keep throwing it again and again, that sound becomes familiar, hollow, meaningless. Words are the same. Every time we use them, their value fades a little. A wise person guards words like gold, while a fool scatters them like dust, and soon no one listens anymore. Perhaps Machiavelli was right when he wrote, "A prince should be slow to speak and quick to act, not because words are worthless, but because they lose their worth when spent too easily." Look around at the world today. We live in an ocean of noise. Social media turns everyone into storytellers of their own lives, sharing meals, emotions, relationships, and sleep. Everyone wants to speak. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone believes that if they do not express, they will disappear. But this is not connection. This is exposure. When you let the world know too much about you, you are no longer in control of your own story. You become an open book, easy to read, easy to analyze, easy to exploit. There is something few dare to admit. Most of what we share does not come from the need to be understood, but from the fear of being forgotten. We fear that if we stay silent, no one will know we are here. If we do not express, no one will recognize our existence. So we speak. We speak to fill the air, to cover silence, to hide the emptiness when our own voice fades away. But silence is not absence. It is a deeper form of presence, like a rock in the middle of a river, unmoving but shaping the flow of water around it. The world worships voices so much that we forget words can also be chains. When we speak, we must take responsibility for what is said, even if it comes from anger or weakness. Once words leave our lips, they no longer belong to us. They travel into the ears of others, and from there, they can be used in any way. They can be quoted, twisted, or turned against us. A single wrong explanation to the wrong person can destroy the respect built over years of silence. Some people believe honesty means saying everything. But no, honesty is not exposure. It is knowing what does not need to be understood by others. A deep soul does not need to be fully read, because mystery is what makes it worth discovering. When you speak too much, you turn yourself into an open map. Everyone can see. Everyone can find shortcuts to your core. When you know how to hold back, you become a maze. People may enter, but they will never find the way out. You may have felt this before. In a conversation, you said something too real, too soon, and right after, your heart went cold. Not because the other person reacted badly, but because you knew you had given away something you should have kept. A secret, a soft spot, a fragile piece of yourself. It feels like standing naked in the middle of a crowded street. From that moment, you cannot take it back. Every word has a price, and that price is only understood after it is paid. Someone might ask, if we do not speak, how will others know what we think? But the better question is, why must they know? In silence, you have the right to keep what belongs to you. You owe no explanation to the world. No one has the right to demand your mind just to feel comfortable. Your power lies there, in the ability to choose when to speak and when not to. When you stay silent in a room full of voices, people begin to listen, not because you command them, but because they cannot guess what is on your mind. Silence is not withdrawal. It is another way of presence, calm but not weak. Some people walk into a crowded place and say nothing, yet their eyes make the whole room stop, not because of status or position, but because they do not need words to take space. They make others adjust their breathing, their posture, just to match their energy. That is the power of those who know how to hold their words. And perhaps the scariest thing in this era is not being judged, but losing your mystery. When everything is spoken, nothing remains for others to wonder about. Nothing makes them pause and think. A world without silence is a world without respect. The silent ones are not quiet because they have nothing to say, but because they understand. When words become cheap, silence becomes the most precious thing of all. Silence, when held wisely, can become a weapon. It makes others reveal themselves, forces them to fill the gap with their own thoughts, and sometimes they expose their own truth in trying to decode you. The less you speak, the more you are heard. The more you hold your silence, the more the world speaks for you. In an age where everyone wants to tell, be the one who makes others stop and wonder, what is he thinking? In that moment of guessing, you have already taken control without saying a word. Silence is the discipline of those who understand their strength. Not muteness, not fear, but the awareness that every word has a cost. When you understand that, you begin to choose. And when you choose, you begin to lead. Silence, in its deepest nature, is not an escape from the world, but the only way for the world to truly hear you, even when you say nothing at all. People talk a lot because they are afraid, not afraid of others, but afraid of themselves. Silence is like a mirror we cannot escape, a place where we must face the hidden thoughts and the emptiness we try to fill with noise. When the world grows quiet, we hear our own voice clearly, and that is what terrifies many people. They speak to cover that echo, to push it away, to avoid hearing the truest part of who they are. Many think they are expressing themselves, but in truth, they are only running away. We live in an age where silence is misunderstood. When someone does not speak, they are seen as proud, distant, or emotionless. But some choose silence, not because they do not care, but because they are listening. They listen to how others breathe, how voices change when they touch something genuine, how eyes flicker when they reach a tender point. In their silence, everything becomes clear. It is something the loud ones will never have, the ability to see through the polished words others use to hide themselves. A person can hide intention through speech, but it is hard to hide from the silence of another. When you stay quiet, others must interpret, and in that effort, they expose themselves. They talk more, reveal more, try to read your mind, and in doing so, uncover what they fear most to lose. Your silence is the space they cannot endure, and they fill it with words. In that moment, you learn more than they ever realize. But most people cannot stand that. They confuse silence with a lack of worth. They believe speaking is the only way to prove existence. So they tell. They tell stories that have not happened, plans that are still unfinished, emotions they do not yet understand. They think sharing means connection, but the more they speak, the emptier they become. Every word spent drains a little energy, erases a bit of mystery. The more the world knows, the weaker they get. True confidence does not lie in the voice, but in the ability not to need it. The lion never declares itself the king of the jungle. It walks, and the forest knows. Those with real power do not need to assert it. They exist, and that presence speaks louder than words. Those who talk too much are often trying to convince themselves. Every statement is a form of self-reassurance. Every explanation is a way to hide the fear of being underestimated. Think back to how many times in your life you have spoken too soon. In a meeting, you revealed your feelings before understanding them. In a negotiation, you shared what should have been kept. In a moment of trust, you gave away a private story, only to regret it later. Each time, you threw a pebble into the lake of someone's perception, creating ripples you could not control. And those ripples came back, reflecting an image of you never intended to show. There is a thin line between being clear and being exposed. The wise speak to be understood. The foolish speak to be noticed. When we talk too much, our words lose weight. They become background noise, like the hum of a fan, always heard, never noticed. In contrast, the quiet person makes others wait, lean in, and focus. Every word they utter carries weight because it is rare, because it is deliberate. In the world of power, silence is the rarest currency of all. In ancient courts, silence was not emptiness. It was strategy. The wise never spoke everything. for they knew that words were the only thing that could betray them. In rooms full of cunning minds, the silent one was the most feared. No one knew what they were thinking, and that uncertainty kept everyone cautious. Mystery is the armor of the strong. When you make yourself unreadable, others withdraw on their own. Yet modern society praises the opposite. Since childhood, we are taught to use words to express that silence means a lack of communication, that keeping things inside is wrong. They encourage us to share, to open up, to be honest about our feelings. But the truth is, those who benefit from your words are rarely you. They gain because once you reveal yourself, you become predictable, controllable, and easy to lead. A person who can be read is a person who can be directed. People say society needs transparency, but too much transparency turns you into an exposed target. When they know everything about you, they can label you, define you, distort your image to serve their purpose. But if they cannot read you, they cannot control you. If they cannot predict what you will say, they cannot plan against you. Silence, when used wisely, is not just defense. It is a quiet form of attack. Those who master silence understand timing. It is not that they lack opinions. They simply know that words matter only when placed correctly, like a musician who knows when to let the music pause. The wise know when to let silence speak for them. In every conversation, the talker drains energy, while the silent one gathers it. One gives away, the other absorbs, and in the end, the quiet one knows more, sees deeper, and holds the advantage. Think of the people you truly respect. They are rarely the loudest in the room. They sit still, they observe. They do not rush to interrupt. They let others speak first, let others reveal their cards. And when they finally speak, the room changes. No one cuts them off. No one argues. Because they have earned something no noise can buy. The weight of presence. The weight of someone who does not need many words to be heard. There is a simple truth. The more a person understands the value of words, the more they can serve them. Just as the wealthy do not flaunt their money, the strong do not flaunt their thoughts. They know every word has a cost, and they spend it only when needed, like drawing a sword at the right moment. No one respects the one who speaks endlessly. They listen to the one who knows when to stop. In a chaotic world, knowing when to stay silent is both an art and a form of power. Silence, after all, is not the absence of sound, but the presence of will. It is your way of declaring, I do not need to explain. It is sitting still while others rush to reveal, letting them show their weakness first. And when they grow uneasy before your calm, you do not win by words, you win by composure. The world worships the loud, but history is written by those who wait, those who speak little, but when they do, the world goes quiet to listen. Something strange happens when a person is forced to sit in silence. They begin to realize how much they fear it. We fear those moments when no one speaks, no one laughs, no one responds. We fear the space between two sentences, the place where truth begins to appear. So we fill it with words, with unnecessary chatter, with explanations, with stories no one asked to hear. But the more we speak, the more we diminish ourselves. Silence, once a mirror reflecting the true self, becomes replaced by the noise of our own insecurity. People often confuse confidence with loudness, but real confidence needs no noise. A truly grounded person feels no need to prove anything. He does not shout to be heard, does not explain to be believed. His strength lies in control, not display. Think of the lion in the forest. It does not roar all day to prove it is king. It simply walks, and the entire forest knows who it stands before. The strong are not the ones who talk, but the ones who do not need to talk to make others listen. If you notice, most of our regrets in life come from saying too much. A confession made before we were ready, an explanation that was unnecessary, a moment of trust shared too soon. Each of these moments takes away something we cannot regain, our mystery. Every word we speak is like a stone thrown into water. It creates ripples, and those ripples travel outward, reflecting an image of us in the minds of others. The problem is, we cannot control how they see. Once words leave our lips, they no longer belong to us. In business, in love, in any relationship, the one who speaks too much always loses first. In negotiation, the one who rushes to speak often loses advantage. In love, the one who opens up too soon loses respect. In conflict, the one who explains too much is the weaker side, the quiet one. The one who listens, the one who waits, controls the rhythm. Calmness forces others to adjust their emotions to you. When you are silent, they must react. When they react, you lead. We were raised in a world that treats openness as a virtue. Since childhood, we have been told, speak your mind, don't hold it in, express yourself, don't fear being misunderstood. But such advice is only true for those who wish to blend in. If you want to create influence, you must learn to hold back. Not everyone deserves to know what you think. Not every story needs to be told. The wise choose their words, like a jeweler chooses gems. Only what is truly necessary is brought into the light. In every room, the one who speaks least is the one who is heard most, not because he has power, but because he makes others wait. When a person remains silent, others begin to imagine, to speculate, even to fear. They build stories in their minds to fill the gap he creates, and in doing so, they reveal their weaknesses. The silent one, by saying nothing, makes the world around him reveal itself. That is power without conflict. But to be silent requires discipline. Silence is not passive. It is controlled restraint. It demands that you resist the urge to react, to be understood, to prove yourself. It demands the strength to endure being misunderstood without needing to defend yourself. The strong do not need to be understood correctly. They know who they are, and that truth does not need to be spoken aloud. Today's world makes us believe that if we do not speak, we will be forgotten. Yet those who are truly remembered are often the ones who know how to be silent. They leave behind an echo, not a noise. When they speak, others pause, not because they talk much, but because they rarely do. In a world where everyone wants to make a sound, silence becomes a luxury. It makes you stand out. It draws attention without effort. If you are hearing this and feel something stirring within you, perhaps you understand the price of saying too much. Perhaps you have shared something and felt hurt, misunderstood, or used. Perhaps you have regretted words that could never be taken back. If that has happened to you, stop for a moment. Breathe. Let this silence teach you what noise has hidden. That sometimes power is not in speaking, but in choosing not to. If you have ever felt this, tell me. You don't need to say much, just a single line. Share your feeling because somewhere, someone may need to hear it too. Maybe they too are struggling between speaking and holding back. Maybe they too are learning to sit still amid the world's noise. Let your sharing be part of this quiet, not to fill it, but to expand it. And then, when you fall silent, when there is nothing left to say, observe. The world changes. You begin to notice subtle movements once hidden beneath sound. A glance shifts. A breath halts. Someone tries to speak more just because you remain quiet. When you see that, you have crossed into a new state, where you are no longer reacting, but observing. And from that place, you hold true power. Silence, when used well, is not just defense. It is a refined form of attack. It makes others reveal themselves, tremble, and lose balance without realizing it. In a room full of voices, the silent one controls the rhythm. In a heated debate, the one who keeps quiet owns the space. They do not win with arguments. They win with calm. Because calm makes others feel their own noise and recognize the weakness in their struggle to be heard. The world will always urge you to speak, but some truths only appear in silence. Those who are truly strong never prove themselves with words. They let actions speak. Let results make the sound. Let their presence be enough to be felt. When you understand this, you will no longer want to speak too much. You will learn to choose words like arrows, only released when truly needed. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon you have is saying nothing at all. There are rooms where voices crowd so tightly it feels suffocating. People fight for every second to speak, afraid that if they stay silent, they will be forgotten. But in the middle of that noise, there is one person who sits quietly, not interrupting, not trying to insert himself. He only listens. And because of that, he sees more than everyone else. In every conversation, there are two layers that exist side by side: the words that are spoken and the truths hidden in the pauses between them. The intelligent do not just hear sounds, they hear the silence between sounds. It is in that silence that truth begins to appear. When we speak, we unconsciously reveal ourselves. A small shift in tone, a forced smile, an unnecessary word, each one exposes what we try to hide. The silent ones notice. They do not just listen, they observe. They see how others trap themselves with their own words, and they understand that the more someone tries to prove, the more they have to hide. In the world of power, silence is not just restraint. It is the art of observation. A person who speaks little can hear much. When you stay silent, you create space for others to speak. And when they speak, they reveal themselves. In every negotiation, the quiet one gathers information, while the talker spends energy. The one who saves his words collects strength. Silence is not the pause between two sounds. It is the tool through which you control rhythm. You can make others reveal what they never meant to say, simply by not responding. Every second that passes in silence pulls the other person deeper into defense. Imagine a meeting where everyone argues, throwing ideas like arrows. One person sits still, eyes steady, showing no reaction. With that calm alone, he makes the entire table wait for when he will speak. And when he finally does, just one sentence, the room falls silent. Not because his words are sharp, but because they come after everyone else has spoken too much. Like a musician who knows exactly when to let the note rest, he controls the atmosphere through restraint. Silence, when used at the right time, is not lack of response. It is the height of control. The same is true in love. The one who talks more is always more vulnerable. They try to explain their feelings, to persuade, to clarify. But real emotions do not need justification. They simply exist. And if you must use words to keep someone, that bond was already fragile. Those who know their worth never need to prove it with words. They let presence, attitude, and actions speak instead. When they are silent, they make others think. When they do not chase, they make others return. Silence, in love, can sometimes be the loudest voice. In work, the principle is the same. In negotiation, the one who breaks the silence first usually loses ground. Speak too early, and you reveal your desire. Speak too much, and you reveal your fear. But if you can wait, if you can stay quiet until the other cannot bear the gap, they will reveal what you need to know. True power does not come from controlling others, but from being unshakable when they try to control you. At times, we think silence makes us misunderstood. But sometimes, that misunderstanding is our protection. When others are unsure of what you think, they cannot predict your next step. They will become cautious, respectful, and keep their distance. In a world where everyone fights for attention, being unreadable is an advantage. Like darkness shielding a flame from the wind, silence protects your power from being scattered by the curiosity of others. The world always follows a rhythm. The talkers create waves. The silent create tempo. If you can control tempo, you can control outcome. The wise do not need to win through argument. They win by letting others tire themselves out. When someone keeps talking without getting a reaction, they begin to lose balance. They start to doubt themselves. And in that doubt, you've already won, without saying a word. But silence is not only a strategy, it is a way of living. Those who master silence know that not every empty space must be filled. They value the pause between sentences the way a painter values the white of the canvas. They understand that real strength lies not in dominating, but in making others come closer. When you speak less, your words start to carry weight. When you speak rarely, every word you say makes people stop. And then you realize, silence is not a wall between you and the world. It is a bridge that lets you see it more clearly. When you are not swept up in the current of noise, you begin to notice the subtleties you once missed. The way someone avoids your gaze, the shift in tone when they lie, the change in atmosphere when you choose not to speak. When you are silent, you do not disappear. You become more present than ever. There is only one thing to remember. Silence is not to hide, but to observe. Not to withdraw, but to take control. When you use silence as a tool of awareness, you begin to see who is trying to prove something, who is real, who is afraid. The world slows down, and you move one step ahead. Every word you do not speak is a stone you keep, while others throw theirs away too quickly. And when all the noise fades, the only one left standing steady is you. Silence, when understood correctly, is not an empty void. It is the breath between the rhythms of life, where we observe, feel, and regain control of ourselves. In the noise of the world, the silent are not the defeated. They are the masters. They do not need to seize the floor or raise their voices to be seen. They simply exist, and their presence alone is enough to make the world quiet down. Those who talk too much are easy to understand, and those who are easy to understand are easy to control. The more we reveal, the more we hand others a map to follow, to predict, to manipulate. When they know what we want, what we fear, where we are vulnerable, all they need to do is touch the right spot, and we react. The talkative believe they are connecting, but in truth, they are dismantling their own armor. In conversations that seem harmless, we often expose details that others can use against us. Not everyone who listens truly wants to understand. Some listen only to know when to strike. The quiet ones, in contrast, are a maze. No one can guess what they think, what they want, or what they intend to do. That unreadability gives them power. When others cannot define you, they begin to fear you. They do not know how you will react, what might hurt you, or whether your silence means agreement or observation. You become the space they cannot bear, and they fill it with their assumptions, exposing themselves in the process. A person who stays silent long enough can make a whole room uneasy. People begin whispering, wondering, what is he thinking? Why isn't he speaking? That silence unsettles them more than any accusation could. Because words have limits, but silence does not. It stretches like a mirror, reflecting everyone's own anxiety. The more they try to fill it, the more control shifts toward you. Mystery is the oldest form of magnetism. When someone does not talk much, every small action suddenly gains weight. A glance, a gesture, a breath. Others start reading meaning that is not there, imagining depth, adding value to every word that person says. The noisier the world, the louder silence becomes. A person who guards their words is like a flame that hides its light. Only its warmth can be felt, never its source. And because of that, everyone wants to get closer, yet no one dares too close. We live in an age where mystery is traded for attention. Everyone wants to be seen, to be heard, to be known, forgetting that being unknowable is what earns true respect. When you reveal too much of yourself, you erase the boundary between you and the world. You make yourself public, and nothing public remains powerful. The truly strong always keep a part of themselves untouchable, a part only they can understand. This truth is even clearer in close relationships. Those who talk too much about their feelings, their pain, their need for love, often fall into dependency. They hand others the power to shape their emotions. Meanwhile, those who hold something back, who do not say everything, make their love deeper and more magnetic. Not because they are cold, but because they understand that real affection cannot be forced. They do not say, "I need you." They stay quiet and let their presence speak instead. In work or in life, the principle is the same. The one who talks more is easier to read. In negotiation, if you let the other side know what you want, you have already lost half the game. But if you stay silent, they will speak more to guess, to fill the space, and in doing so, they reveal what you need to know. Your silence becomes a mirror. Everyone who looks into it sees themselves, not you. Stillness does not make you weak. It makes you unpredictable. And in this world, the unpredictable hold the power. Let others believe they understand you. Let them guess, discuss, analyze. Do not deny, and do not confirm. The less you explain, the more confused they become. That confusion is your strength. When they cannot tell where you stand, they will not dare to attack. They will wait for you to speak. And in that waiting, you control the game. But to reach this kind of silence, you need something rare, confidence. Not the loud kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from not needing to be understood. People will call you cold, distant, even arrogant. Let them. Every label is just their way of feeling safer in front of what they cannot grasp. Once you understand that, you no longer need to explain yourself. You realize that not being understood is what keeps you protected. Silence is a form of power that requires no struggle. It does not come from overpowering others, but from making them retreat. Those who master silence know how to wait. They do not need to win immediately because they understand that rushed words are a form of surrender. They are patient, they observe, and when the time comes, they speak a single line, precise, heavy as metal. That weight comes from the hundreds of words they chose not to say before. And perhaps the most frightening thing to others is not a threat, but the silence that follows it. A calm look, A long pause can haunt someone more than any outburst ever could, because silence forces them to live with the fear they created in their own mind. They do not know what you will do, or when, or how. They only know that you are not done, and that uncertainty is the deepest form of control. The talkative seek certainty. The silent create uncertainty. And in the game of power, the one who makes others guess is the one who wins. Be that person, the one who does not need to speak to be heard, does not need to explain to be trusted, does not need to prove to be respected. Sometimes, a calm look from you can make others speak 100 words in your place. And when they begin to guess, you no longer need to do anything. You have already won. There is a moment everyone experiences, the moment you are misunderstood, attacked, and every instinct in you screams to explain. You want to speak to prove you are right, that you are not at fault, that others have judged you wrongly. But in that very moment, your power begins to slip away. Every explanation is a small piece of yourself handed over. Every justification is a confession that someone else has the power to make you speak. The strong do not need to prove anything. They let silence do their work. Silence, when held long enough, reveals the truth that words never can. Those who cannot bear silence are always led by the world. When insulted, they must react. When praised, they must respond. When questioned, they must answer. They cannot stand the gap between action and reaction. They fear that if they stay silent, they will look weak. But in that constant reaction, they become easy to control. The moment someone can make you speak, they can make you lose control. And when you lose control, you lose everything. Observe those who hold real influence. They are never in a hurry. When provoked, they do not retaliate. When doubted, they do not explain. When insulted, they smile. They understand that the one who talks more is always the one more afraid. Every second of their silence makes others uneasy, shifts the rhythm of the entire room. They do not need to speak to dominate. They stay silent and let others reveal their own restlessness. The same truth applies in intimate relationships. When someone always feels the need to explain themselves, they slowly lose the respect of the other. Respect does not come from words. It comes from calmness. The confident do not need to declare their innocence. They simply live it. The weak fear being misunderstood. The strong let truth reveal itself over time. In love, the one who talks too much loses ground, because they place their emotions in another's hands. Hands that can crush them with a single moment of silence. There is an art to stillness, the ability to endure silence. Every time you feel the urge to react, pause for a beat. Every time you want to speak, ask yourself, does this serve me or just make others comfortable? Most of what we say is to soothe others' unease, so they will not think us cold, so they will not feel ignored. But if you live only to keep others comfortable, you will never be strong. True self-mastery comes when you can let others wrestle with your silence. And in that space, you reclaim all control. Silence is also the test of emotion. The impulsive speak when angry. The confident stay quiet until it matters. The weak are led by their immediate feelings. The strong know that emotion is a short wave. Wait long enough, and it will fade on its own. Many tragedies begin with one unnecessary sentence, spoken in anger. If you can stay silent in that moment, you will avoid wounds no apology could ever heal. In work, those who know how to be silent are often seen as profound. They do not rush to display opinions or interrupt. They observe how people react, listen to what others reveal without meaning to. When they finally speak, everyone stops. Because they speak rarely, their words carry weight. Each sentence is like an arrow, direct, few, but enough to shift the wind. The talkers, no matter how right they are, fade in the noise of their own voices. Silence, in its deepest sense, is freedom. When you no longer feel obligated to answer, you break free from the world's control. You stop being pulled by reactions. You become the one who observes, who directs, who sets the rhythm. That silence is not withdrawal. It is the foundation of inner power. The one who can sit in the noise without speaking, without wavering, knows that the quiet within them is stronger than all sounds outside. Sometimes people will ask you, why don't you speak? Why don't you explain? Those are the questions of those who cannot stand the void. They need noise to feel safe. But you do not owe them that comfort. They will guess, they will invent stories, and while they are busy with their imagination, you remain calm. Do not fear being misunderstood. Misunderstanding only wounds the ego, never the truth. Silence does not mean you cannot speak. It means you know when to. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every accusation deserves a defense. True strength is the ability to smile, stay quiet, and let others expose themselves in their own storm of doubt. Those who cannot handle silence will always speak too much, and in their words, they lose the control that you still hold. When you learn to sit still in silence, you begin to hear more than ever before. You hear the tremble in a liar's voice, the defense in words spoken too quickly, the fear hidden in loud laughter. The world slows down and becomes clearer. And in that clarity, you stop reacting and start leading. People fear silence because it forces them to face themselves. But if you are brave enough to stay with it, you will discover something. Silence is not empty. It is full of energy, strength, and presence. It is not darkness, but a faint light seen only by those patient enough to look. When you hold that stillness, you do not need to fight to win, you simply remain, and the world adjusts itself around you. There will come a moment when you realize words are never harmless. Every sentence you speak is a fragment of a map that leads others closer to your inner world. When you speak, you give away power. When you stay silent, you keep it whole. The wise do not speak out of passing emotion. They speak when their words carry weight, when they serve a clear purpose. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the one who speaks sparingly becomes the one others listen to. Because silence, when intentional, is not absence. It is presence. You will not understand this until you feel the sting of regret for something you said, a secret slipped in a moment of trust, a confession that hurt your pride, a truth thrown out before it was ready. Every word carries weight, and sometimes that weight falls back on us. We think speaking will lighten our hearts, but in truth, we only transfer the burden to others, and they use it to bind us. Silence, on the other hand, preserves energy. It allows us to see more clearly, to understand more deeply, and to choose the right moment to act. When you learn to stay silent, the world around you begins to change. People react differently. They grow careful when they speak before you, unsure of what you might think. They soften, they hesitate, because they cannot find cues to hold on to. Meanwhile, you remain calm. You do not strain to prove yourself or push to be heard. You simply observe, and that gaze alone makes them reveal themselves. You do not need to persuade anyone. You let them believe they understand you, and in that illusion, they walk right into the space you have created. The talkers often believe they are controlling the story, but in truth, the story controls them. The quiet one, the restrained one, holds the rhythm. Every conversation has a flow, a pulse, between speaking and listening, between pauses and replies. Whoever holds that rhythm holds power. If you stay silent long enough, the pause becomes heavy, forcing others to fill it, to expose what they meant to hide. Silence, in the hands of the skilled, is the most sophisticated form of strategy. Imagine an important meeting. You sit there, calm, listening. They explain, predict, persuade. Then they stop, waiting. Silence fills the air. 1 second, 2, then 10, and you still say nothing. They begin to shift, then speak again, trying to fill the emptiness. That is the moment you take control, not through words, but through the space you create. Silence not only makes others talk more, it makes them expose what they fear most, their discomfort with uncertainty. Silence has another power. It makes you mysterious. People fear what they cannot understand and are drawn to what they cannot decode. When you speak less, they fill the blanks themselves. They project their own hopes, fears, and images onto you. Each person sees you differently, and because no one truly knows, you become memorable. Those who are easily understood are easily forgotten, but those who remain unread are remembered long after. Those who master silence also listen inwardly. When you do not speak, you begin to hear the thoughts, fears, and desires within yourself. You realize that most words in the world exist only to fill the emptiness inside. People speak to avoid feeling. But you, when you dare to sit quietly, learn to feel without fear. You come to understand yourself. And from that understanding, your words, if you choose to speak, become sharp, concise, and precise as an arrow. In a world that demands reaction, silence is an act of rebellion. When someone insults you and you do not respond, they lose direction. When someone flatters you and you do not rush to believe, they find you unshakable. When someone demands an explanation and you only smile, they begin to doubt themselves. Each time you choose silence over speech, you reclaim power. You no longer let others shape your emotions. And that is freedom. There is a kind of strength that never shows off, the strength of one who can endure silence without feeling empty. They do not fear being misunderstood, forgotten, or left behind, because they know that everything truly valuable never needs to be spoken. Others may be loud for a time, but noise always fades. Stillness remains deep, heavy, and lasting. When you understand this, you begin to choose your words like strikes of a blade. You do not speak to fill, you speak to conclude. You do not speak to be heard, you speak to shift the wind. Every word carries the weight of the hundreds you chose not to say, and others feel it. They pause when you speak, not because you shout, but because they know your words are never empty. At that point, you no longer fear silence. You begin to love it. You understand that silence is the space where truth reveals itself. It is the breath between two heartbeats where awareness awakens. It is where you see others clearly, and more importantly, where you finally see yourself. Then, you no longer need words to be heard. Your presence alone is enough to change the world around you. And if someone asks why you are so quiet, just smile. They do not need to understand. They do not need to hear. Your silence is already the answer. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.